Now the image is like back to good enough. It should be alive, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's live. Should we adjust this a little bit?
No, it's just shitty colors.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's right. Put it on the meetup page. No. The meetup page has the live stream. The Google Hangout.
Where we no, the number one is the very close. All right, so it says
Yeah, when they get us, to get us.
Yeah, they haven't brought it.
Email you.
All right. All right, everything's cool. Let's introduce. Wendy.
Okay. How do I share? I've never used
I don't know. There's not a lot of confidence in this plan.
Are you presenting first?
Yeah, I see that.
Oh, really? Everything, the daily I know, 20 minutes ago,
Try not to kick us over.
Sergey's probably doing something to it. You kind of, I think you kind of. Quick, don't do it. Yeah.
white one, red one.
Yeah, it's a job. It's a very important job. Drink it.
She'll beat me.
You're out on Oh yeah, how was Grand Canyon?
That was awesome. I always make sure to test my limits when I'm on site. An hour. It's not my money.
Hey Corey, should I put it like facing the people or like this camera? Should I like put it over here or should it face like the audience? Because when she's up there,
you're down at Phoenix level, like big actors. Then it's a small actor.
The focus of the camera is based on sound. So that's going to be like the main image. Yeah, I'm not sure how this is going to work.
I can mute this and then she can use her
microphone.
I know. 20 degrees being like top of the Grand Canyon.
Testing. Is there a way we can verify? Is there a way we can verify? Because I'm unmuted now. Because I'm unmuted now, so it should be working. Which screen am I sharing? Tell me which screen am I sharing in the Hangout? Yeah. Oh, the wrong one. So how do you? Yeah. That better? We can like leave doing something. Hello. No. I think I can hold it. Is this working? All right. So I don't know if the Google Hangout sound is on. That's yeah. Oh yeah. No.
All right, let me. All right. Very much. Great job. Um, Corey, helping me, my co-founders, bouncing the same he's asking environment. Right now.
Ish theory, maybe. I mean,
Right, yeah, that's right. Yeah, very much.
thank you, Martin. Hey guys, I'm Anastasia. I'm a Sitecore architect at ARC. So my session is about using node frameworks in your Sitecore project. And I had a really hard time fitting this into 40 minutes. So I'm going to do my best to chop it up into 20 minutes and still have it make sense. So I've been doing cool stuff with JavaScript on the server side over the past year in production projects. So that's what I'm going to share with you. So everything I'm going to show, it's not dependent on JSS. You guys can do this in your existing MVC projects. So that's the cool stuff about what I'm showing you. So I'm going to show you how to use node frameworks in these steps of the Sitecore development lifecycle. So we're going to jump right into setup. So what can node frameworks do for you in the setup phase of the Sitecore project lifecycle? So this phase is when time is spent on gathering requirements and setting up development environments. So as we all know, development environments for Sitecore projects are quite complex. There's multiple integration points to set up, and it's important to set up a development setup process that's repeatable and consistent. So although each project has unique requirements, there are certain foundational elements that need to be repeated every time. And it's very time consuming and error prone to set this up manually every time. So that's where the node module Yeoman comes in. Yeoman is a project generator that lets us automate our unique Sitecore solution spin-up processes. We can create a template for new projects that's source controlled and collectively managed. So as teams try out cool new tools or error handling techniques or something else, they can just roll that back into the source control template so that the entire company can benefit from the learnings. Yeoman is the generic scaffolding system. So other devs can use the generator you build, even if they're not familiar with the inner workings of Yeoman or the node stack that powers it. The prerequisite for building a generator is having an existing Sitecore project that you think is a good candidate to be your standard cookie cutter. So I have a very detailed blog post about how to build your own generator. I won't dive too deep in this lightning session, but if you go to Yeoman's website and search for Sitecore, mine is currently the first one showing up, though there's other cool Sitecore generators out there as well. So you can actually, the generator I'm about to demo, you can go home and run this yourself on your computer. So just quickly how I got to the basic setup here. So first we had to create a node module, and I did that by running npm init, which is a command that creates this package.json file for us. Package.json is a very important file for node modules. It's basically the node definition. It's where we declare metadata about our node module and declare our dependencies and their versions and define what commands are exposed by our node module. So once I created that for the generator, the next step was to create a folder called generators in the node module root, and to let package.json know where this generator's folder is. So that's how Yeoman knows where to look for generators in our node module. Once we have this generators folder, as you can see, I broke up my generator into the main app, and then I have two sub-generators, add TypeScript and add Bootstrap. So that's something you guys should think about when you're building your own generators, because you probably don't want just a big generator for everything. You want the generator for the stuff that gets run most often, and then you want sub-generators for the stuff that's less commonly used. So in my demo, I have my C# and TDS Helix structure in the main generator, and then I have sub-generators to add Bootstrap, and then another sub-generator to add a shell skeleton TypeScript project. So this means that anybody who runs my generator doesn't automatically have a dependency on TypeScript and Bootstrap. So it's just a good best practice to follow. So inside the folders for the generators, what you have to do is create folders for templates and a file called index.js. Index.js is the entry point file that Yeoman will use to kick off your generator. We'll come back to that in a minute. And templates is the folder that has your template files. So this is the guts of your generator. So what do I mean by template files? Template files will be used to create your new project. This is where the custom part of custom project generator comes in. These template folders need to be filled with the base structure that's unique to your company based on whatever existing project you're using as your model project. So obviously, any existing project is going to have project-specific values scattered throughout, and you need to replace these with variables. So for variables that can be manipulated at generation time, Yeoman respects EJS syntax. So this is an example of a file where the project-specific values have been replaced with EJX syntax. If I can zoom in. So this is a TDS SC file that we're looking at. So it looks a little bit complex, but all the work lies in identifying the list of values that need to be replaced with variables. And from there, it's just using find and replace to replace them all. So this list is a good starting point for what to look for. So once you have your templates, we need to circle back to that index.js file and populate it with all the steps that your generator is going to do. And Yeoman uses a convention-driven approach for function names. So if you just name your functions based on the names in this diagram, Yeoman will run them in this order. So you can check my blog posts for a very detailed description of how my generator implements every step. And just, I guess, a quick summary here. I have the initializing step, which logs a message and creates a settings object. And this settings object will be used to store the custom project-specific values that the person running this generator, will put in. And these can be saved for a later time for future subgenerators. The prompting step, Prompting step is what's going to prompt the person running this generator for all these variables. My prompting step is broken up into two sub-steps. So in my first one, I ask for the Sitecore version. In the second one, I ask for the .NET version. And I limit the options for the .NET version based on the answer that was given to the first question. So by chaining them like this, you can actually make your prompting step very smart and help the dev avoid errors. So that's a good thing to point out. The configuring step saves all the settings that have been provided to a config file. This will allow future subgenerators to reuse them. The writing step, this is the meat of the generator. This is where all your files will get transformed based on the EJS syntax, and they will get renamed dynamically and save to disk. Then I have an install step that installs node dependencies in my new project, and at the end I log a message. So if we see this in action, so I've created a new folder where I'm going to run my generator. The command to run the generator is yo and then the generator name. And then so it's going to log the message and then jump into the prompting step. So it's going to ask me for a bunch of variables like the solution name, solution namespace, MVC area name, Sitecore version. And then after it gets all the variables, it's going to go into the writing step where it's writing my templates and dynamically replacing the project-specific variables. And now it's installing the node dependencies in my new project. And then it's done in just a matter of seconds. Well, it will be. How am I on time? Where's my gong? All right, so it's done. So now we can go and check. So the values that I supplied have been saved to this config file. So that means that future subgenerators can reuse these variables. I can check that all my node dependencies have been downloaded. And then if I inspect the solution that was created for me, we can see that all the namespaces have been renamed based on the values I supplied. I can open up this project, this Visual Studio solution that was created for me, and just see what was inside. There's Helix, Helix structured C# and TDS projects. I have some build profiles set up for CMCD. There's some basic gulp tasks in here. If you actually run this on your local machines, the documentation that comes with the repository explains everything that's in here. And the content of my sample project isn't really important. What I'm trying to showcase here is just the multitude of things that you can have installed by your generator, and it's all just created so quickly. I mean, this was scaffolded in a matter of seconds. So as a developer, I'm ready to go. I can start building, I can start working on CI/CD. So we were able to collapse the work of setting up a Sitecore solution with all these pieces to just under a minute. So with that, we're going to jump to the development part of the Sitecore project lifecycle. So we all know Helix. It's a pattern for managing dependencies. It allows for modular components that are reusable and testable. But when devs think about Helix, we usually just think of it in terms of our C# projects and Sitecore items, and JavaScript is often overlooked. But if we're building renderings with a rich UI, then our projects end up housing large custom JavaScript libraries. And to maximize reuse and make maintenance easier, I think the JavaScript components should adhere to Helix principles as well. So to achieve this, we need a dependency resolution and module bundling tool for JavaScript. So in today's demo, we will look at Webpack. Webpack does bundling, and it also lets me run a local server, which I'll use to test my JavaScript against a headless CMS. So to be clear, I'm focusing in on the JavaScript library part of a Sitecore project, and I'm suggesting that this subsection should itself adhere to Helix. All the code I will show from here on will be inside the TypeScript library, which lives inside my Sitecore project. So Webpack is a module bundler. We tell it what the entry point is, and it uses this to build out its internal dependency graph. Webpack needs to be installed with npm or yarn, and then it requires some base configuration to tell it what the entry point is and what the output file name is. I'm adding a command to package.json to be able to kick off Webpack. So I will show you how that works. My command does two things. First, it runs yarn to ensure that all my node dependencies are up to date, and second, it calls Webpack to do the bundling. So with Webpack as my dependency manager, I'm able to bring Helix-style modularity to my TypeScript layer. So if we go to my demo project, we can see that in the foundation layer, so I've implemented some basic infrastructure here, like I have a component loader that loads all my TypeScript components on the current page. You can put stuff here like an event bus or global utilities. In the feature layer, this is where you will put your UI classes that map to Sitecore renderings. So looking at the sample component, these imports is what really highlights the value of this TypeScript helix. So I can import files from other layers, and this allows me to achieve that modularity and reusability. And so that command that I talked about, this angle. So here it is the build command, and I'm going to go ahead and run it. And so if you look up in the upper left corner here, it's going to create a bin folder with the output of this build command. So here we have our compiled TypeScript library all in one file. So it resolved all the dependencies. It made sure that no dependencies were duplicated. So we were able to achieve modularity and reusability. But we can do even better, actually. So we can add one more node module called Webpack Dev Server, which will allow us to do the bundling that I just showed you on the fly, so that we can test our TypeScript component our TypeScript library dynamically. So for that, I'm using the project layer to house static files that mock Sitecore. So in my project layer, I have HTML files that represent Sitecore, that represent HTML that will be served by Sitecore, and I have JSON files that represent Sitecore AJAX responses. So in doing this, what I can do is I have another command for kicking off a Webpack Dev Server. And what this does is launch 9,000. So it launches the library that I just showed you on this localhost server. And the cool thing is that if I go into my sample component, so I'm just going to go into the constructor here. Is that the constructor? So I've saved it, and you can see that it recompiled on the fly. And in my browser, we can see the update right away. So I've achieved headless development in my TypeScript library. So you can just make your updates, and it will watch your files for changes, recompile the entire library on the fly, and then reload your browser. So the node module that we used for this was Webpack Dev Server. So it's a second module that needs to be installed on top of Webpack, and it does require an extra configuration in the Webpack config JSON. And I did expose one more command in my package.json file to run this server. So I did want to show that my headless implementation, AJAX commands also work. So it's not just running static files. And the way I was able to achieve this is by following a few architectural patterns. And that is, for all server interaction, I encapsulated all AJAX functionality in an injectable helper and never hard-coded server endpoints. And all my UI component classes accepted the server interaction helper as parameters in the constructor and never talked to the server directly. So this is what it looks like in my implementation. This is the static HTML file from my headless context. And you can see that in the headless context, for my server endpoint, I'm passing in a JSON file to my AJAX helper. And then the way that the same file looks in the Sitecore context is there. I'm passing in a real MVC route. So by controlling the final endpoints that my components talk to, and by having this as a parameter that's passed to my components in the constructor, I'm able to inject that dependency. So finally, we're going to move on to testing. The design patterns that we just went over, which enabled us to inject dependencies into TypeScript components, are the same patterns that make unit testing a breeze, because everything that was done to mock a Sitecore context for the local server can be reused to mock a Sitecore context for unit testing. To add Jasmine to a project, we have to install the Jasmine and Jasmine core modules with npm or yarn, and then we can just jump right into writing tests. So testing something like a utility class with static functions is pretty straightforward, but in order to test UI component classes, you must ensure that when dependencies are injected, this happens via interfaces, not concrete classes, since interfaces can be mocked during unit tests. Here's what I mean by that. In my sample component from the demo, you can see that the dependency injection of my Ajax helper was done through an interface. So when initializing this class in a unit test, I can pass in a mock implementation that stubs out the functions that perform Ajax calls, just like you would do in C#. And I recommend a similar approach for dependencies on the DOM. So my UI component classes accept the DOM element in the constructor and scope all actions to this DOM element. So you can see for when I demoed the Ajax call, when I clicked the call to action and additional components were loaded. So the dependency on the DOM element is passed in through the constructor. So in my unit test, I can pass an element that represents HTML rendered by Sitecore, and then I can change the content of the HTML to represent changes in content authored by fields, and thereby test different use cases. So Jasmine is just the unit test framework. We still need a runner like Karma to run the test. So we have to install Karma with npm or yarn, and then Karma has some additional plugins based on the needs of your project. I'm exposing a command to run Karma in my package.json file, and now we're just going to see what that looks like. So some of the plugins that I added were Istanbul Code Coverage Reporter, and that allows me to see the code coverage percentage of my project. So we can see here the number of successful tests and the percentage covered, and then we can see a detailed output of the unit tests. Karma also adds reports. It has the functionality of creating reports. So if we look in the bin, it generated some reports, and these are very useful if you're running Karma from your CI/CD tooling. So here's an example of what one of these reports looks like. That's it. So this is where you can get my slides and the code that I showed. My entire generator, including the Bootstrap and TypeScript parts, is available here. Follow me on Twitter, ask questions. I made it 20 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. All right, has everybody got food? Get used to this mic here. Corey, can we tell if we got audio on the presentation online, YouTube? Okay, yeah, it's my first live streaming experience, so yeah, really branching out in the world. Okay. We have, that would be good. Do we have, where'd Martin go? Did Martin wander away?
Oh, Mary. Yeah. I'll send you a message on like the 3 1. Okay.
All right, we'll get started here in just a second.
You sound good on the stream.
Awesome. All right, go ahead and get started. For those of you who don't know me, my name is John Schneider. I'm the managing director of RightPoint here in Atlanta. Been working with the Sitecore user community here for about the past 5 years. And I wanted to actually, Martin did a great job sort of introducing the group and thanking everybody else, but I wanted to take a second and actually thank Martin. I've been working with Martin for the past 2 years on sponsoring this user group. There's probably a select group of 4 or 5 individuals. I know there's a number of organizations that help put this together, but Martin's been sort of front and center for the past 2 years across 2 different jobs now, still sort of organizing and making this happen. So really wanted to recognize him. I think he's kind of wandered over there and he's not paying attention, but Martin. Okay, all right. So I'm going to talk tonight a little bit about igniting your digital commerce experience. So this is a little bit different from the past presentation. I think was definitely a little bit more developer focused. This is we're going to talk a little bit more some trends in the commerce industry, particularly as Sitecore Commerce has launched in the past year and has really become sort of a top topic in the Sitecore community. So in the world of commerce, there's been a lot of disruption going on as digital, everything is being disrupted these days, but in commerce and particularly manufacturers are selling direct to customers, supply chains are consolidating, new marketplaces are being created, delivery methods are changing, everything is happening instantly, and consumers are really starting to change their expectations, right? They're really starting to look for ways to move beyond the traditional omni-channel experience, which is the same experience on all channels, order online, get it delivered directly, or pick up in store, sort of traditional e-commerce definition, right? Even though Sitecore is, I think, you could argue a little late in the game towards getting into the commerce space. I think they're now in a pretty good position to actually be leading the commerce space as we move forward, right? And we believe that trend is moving forward to what we're calling fluid commerce. And fluid commerce is this expectation of a frictionless contextual commerce experience for customers as they move between devices and channels to complete a purchase. So it's no longer just going on to Amazon, purchasing something, having it show up at your house. Although granted, I think many of us probably do that once a day. I know I did it this morning. But commerce is really now being defined as the point where you start to research. You might look at it on your mobile phone, your desktop, in store, what have you, and owning that experience end to end across many touch points and channels all the way to the end purchase and then potentially the repurchase, right? So taking a look at kind of the definition change between omni and fluid, right? Omni-channel was a consistent experience across all devices and channels, right? Having the kind of same luggage in multiple sizes, versus fluid commerce is a personalized and contextual experience across all devices and channels, but not the same experience on every channel at every time, right? There's voice applications, there's mobile applications, there's in-store, there's traditional web. There's a lot of different places, and there's sort of a right form factor for everyone. In omnichannel, you had the in-store experience was equipped with wayfaring and contextual messaging, but in fluid commerce, you're seeing in-store experiences actually doing predictive merchandising, showing you offers in the aisle, and contextual promotions, right? The expectations are getting greater and greater. From a delivery perspective, or ordering, you know, in omnichannel, it was, you know, ordering in store or via digital property. To now in fluid commerce, there's ordering whenever and wherever, right? Ordering in my kitchen, just saying, Alexa, get me some more dish soap, right? And it just shows up 2 days later. Or going into my laundry room and hitting the Tide button and getting more Tide, right? There's an expectation to just be able to do it instantly and everywhere, and not just on my laptop or in store or on my mobile phone. Right? Fulfillment is also changing dramatically, right? Traditionally, e-commerce was, you know, pick up in store or delivery to your home. Now you've got user-defined fulfillment, right? Which can be anything from, you know, I'm going to reserve something online, go view it in the store, and maybe I will or will not buy it. Or maybe I'm going to order my pizza and have it delivered instead of to my home, but have it delivered to a GPS location in a park, right? Things like that are starting to happen where consumers are totally changing the way that they expect things to reach them from an e-commerce perspective, right? Loyalty is also being redefined, right? In traditional omni-channel commerce, loyalty was really defined by, you know, the amount of miles you flew or the amount of purchases you made, right? Now it's starting to become defined in terms of referrals and engagement and how you're actually becoming an advocate for a brand. Right. And so as you can see, the world and traditional definition of successful commerce is completely changing. Right. So let's talk about an example of fluid commerce for a second. Right. So Angela's a tech savvy 36-year-old homeowner. Right. She's got a dishwasher in her you know, pretty nice house that, you know, doesn't seem like it's out of date, but she's not happy with it, right? She's interested in getting something. Maybe it's a little quieter, maybe it has, you know, two drawers instead of one. Who knows, right? So she decides she wants to search for a replacement. So she instantly just starts talking to her Google Home that she has in her kitchen, right? And says, Google, where can I buy a new dishwasher? And Google comes back to her and says, well, Home Store has a number of dishwashers available. Would you like to to download their app and actually start browsing some dishwashers? She says, that sounds great. Google goes ahead and sends a link to her mobile phone for her to download the app. She says, okay. And then she goes ahead and starts using the Home Store app to browse dishwashers, right? Instantly, she's transcended 2 different digital touch points as part of this transaction, right? As she starts to browse, Home Store starts to notice, as she's looking at focusing in on dishwashers and a few specific ones, they ask if she'd be interested in going to their product comparison feature. She says sure, and next thing she knows, she's looking at their responsive web app and comparing different products. She then runs out of time and decides to come back the next day on her laptop, and Home Store's website recognizes her and jumps her back directly into that shopping experience and comparing dishwashers, right? But AI behind the scenes also starts to notice that her purchasing history is of premium appliances or premium products, notices that she's got an inclination towards Bosch dishwashers, and sends her an in-context offer for a Bosch dishwasher at a 20% discount. That then triggers her to start a chat with a CSR to ask for more information about this dishwasher, looking for, hey, where can I actually go see this thing in person, right? The chatbot then looks up available inventory, finds a local home store near her, and an available time to create an appointment for her to go visit it in store, right? And says to her, you know, would you like to go view it at 2 p.m. at the home store near you? She says, absolutely, that's perfect, right? So the chat bot comes back and says, Great, I'll send you directions and a reminder about an hour before your appointment. So later that day, the website sends a push notification to her mobile app, which actually prompts her to reminds her for the appointment and gives her directions to get to the store, right? As she then walks into the store, beacons in the store recognize who she is, notify a sales associate that she's there, who can then gives her all of the gives the sales associate all of the context that she's been looking at a Bosch dishwasher. This is what she's interested in. All of the information from her purchase path earlier on from at home, and she's able to work directly with the sales associate to see the dishwasher, create a local profile, and complete the transaction and schedule a delivery. Right. So as you can see, that e-commerce transaction, right, actually started probably 4 or 5 different touch points earlier, but it was controlled and fluid throughout the entire experience, ending in a final purchase, right? So behind the scenes, looking at the technology of what really happened there, right? You started out, you had a Google Voice application doing a search for dishwashers and directing Angela to Home Store's mobile app, right? That mobile app then leveraging a Sitecore Experience 9 and Coveo to personalize the Home Store's catalog and show her recommend the right products, right? We also had some AI going on, recognizing. I'm sorry. There's some recognition as she shifted between the mobile app and the website to drop her back into the same contextual experience, not have her start all over again, right? You had some Sitecore's Cortex AI determining that, based on her purchase history, that she's interested in Bosch, and actually sending her a real-time offer of 20% on the dishwasher, which then enticed her to kind of move further on down in the purchase funnel. There was a chat bot going on where to actually communicate with Angela, look at the local inventory and schedule the appointment for her to come in store and actually make the purchase. You had a trigger from Sitecore Commerce to Angela's Home Store app to send her notifications to the store and do wayfinding. You had beacons in the store recognizing Angela when she arrived and notifying the sales associate that she was there and providing her all the context. And then you had a sales associate with a custom sales app that actually presented her all the context about Angela as she walked in the store to help facilitate and complete that purchase, right? So you had a lot of different technology and a lot of different touch points going on there. That was Angela's e-commerce experience, right? So, looking at this can be kind of daunting, and you think about, like, how do I put this all together, right? And there's, as a brand, there's a number of things to think about on your shopping list as you're putting these types of things together, right? First and foremost is, a digital commerce strategy to understand the user journeys and opportunities that are relevant to your brand and to your consumers and your personas. There's also, an enterprise platform to support content commerce and search, right? No surprise, we're a Sitecore user group. That platform is probably going to be something that starts with an S, ends in an E. But you need something that can actually connect all those dots, right, as the hub of it. You need integrations in a robust CRM to get that robust 360-degree view of your customer. There's voice applications you've got to consider that are tied into your storefront to allow voice ordering, reordering, even status of your orders, right? We didn't show that here, but you could probably extend that journey and have Angela ask her Google Home, when is my dishwasher arriving, right? What's the schedule? Where is the delivery truck? There's AI to actually anticipate user needs and personalize the transactional experiences, right? You have integration with native apps for richer mobile experiences for people to get information in the format that they're going to trust or really be able to find an optimal user experience, right? You've got, obviously it's commerce, you've got a lot of integrations with third-party systems, your ERP, BI, inventory systems, etc. And then, I think also very important is, empowering your sales associates with mobile sales applications to allow them to become a human part of that sales interaction, right? There's an opportunity there to really connect and drive that human interaction even further, even in an e-commerce context, right? Technology required for this kind of sits across physical, digital, and data, right? You know, from a physical perspective, you have voice applications, beacons, device messaging, in-store wayfinding. You know, digital, you have some of your, you know, traditional responsive applications, native mobile applications, sales concierge applications, scheduling applications. You've got some of your backend integrations, but whether it be your business intelligence, CRM, ERP systems that you have to integrate with, your cloud-based AI, right? And then at the center of it all, you need a fluid commerce platform that allows you to sort of tie it all together, right? You know, which, you know, lucky for us as Sitecore enthusiasts, Sitecore has offered us really a great platform to do that, right? And with Sitecore Commerce 9, you have the unique combination of the benefits of a very, you know, powerful and robust experience management system that I think we've been all experience management platform that we've all been working with for, you know, 5, 6, 7, 10 years, right? But then also an equally extensible commerce platform, and bringing those two worlds together to really create integrated content, commerce, and context, right? If you look at historical commerce architectures, right, for forever, you've had these monolithic, almost Java-based commerce applications that sort of own the experience, whether it be Hybris or WebSphere or WebLogic or what have you, and then they were traditionally integrated in a very ugly nature behind the scenes with, there'd be Sitecore or Adobe or what have you, right? And you had the ability to pump content into them, but the commerce experience actually owned the glass, right? Sitecore's ability to actually bring all those things together seamlessly in a platform that's really been built from the ground up to work together is really a differentiated positioning for brands. Another, I think, really interesting thing too is the business tools, right? Obviously, you've got the content management, catalog management, orders and customer management, but the ability to also create those not only just in Sitecore's business user tools, but the ability to create custom business user tools with Sitecore's shift to my next one. Shift to Angular from their architecture from Speak, right? So if you look at looking at, you know, behind the scenes, the way that Sitecore is architected, right? They've really kind of logically grouped everything in a set of extensible data components that allow you to customize the complete solution from catalog to customer, right? Everything across your catalog, offers, orders, shopping cart, it's all very modular in the same architecture that we're very used to from an experience management context, and they've extended that into commerce, right? So you've got all of that great power there as well. You know, I mentioned earlier the management and business user tools. This is also a really interesting opportunity for brands to create differentiated experiences. I mean, you have the tools that are out of the box that Sitecore provides you to manage your catalog and manage offers and what have you. And that's great for, you know, behind the scenes merchandisers working in office buildings, right? But when you get into actually interacting with, engaging in the e-commerce flow in the store, which, you know, we talked about in that fluid commerce example earlier, the ability to create custom sales applications or service applications becomes really interesting as well, right? So that you can have a human inject themselves into that what seemingly would be a very digital flow before, and actually add, you know, be able to kind of combine the physical and digital worlds at a new level is really quite empowering. And Sitecore's architecture of the, you know, AngularJS, Sitecore's AngularJS application architecture that allows you to build applications outside of Sitecore itself offers up some really interesting and unique opportunities, right? You know, next thing that's also very interesting, as I mentioned, you know, the 360-degree view of the customer and your integration with your CRM is hugely important. And really, there's data to be captured everywhere, and being smart about how you actually capture that and being able to build transactional awareness throughout the entire journey, right? And connecting those touch points together so they're actually working together across the fluid flow is really important, right? So looking across that, looking at your strategy, understanding where you need to gather that information, how you can connect it together particularly with AI, which I think is what, it's been technically possible for a while, but the manpower required to actually achieve it has only been recently available as, we've really started to realize how to realize the power of artificial intelligence. So then as you get into getting started with Sitecore Commerce, we've seen a couple of different paths for people to get started. There is, by the default, Sitecore ships out of the box with a set of NuGet packages that you can start to assemble your solution and start to build things. However, what we found is that while there is there's the Habitat demo site that they provide, it's really not a good production-ready starting point for people to start building commerce experiences, right? It's made for sales demonstrations. It's not made to actually use as the foundation for your application, right? So we're finding brands have the need, or we're finding the need to actually create an accelerator that's actually production ready and has a lot of the front end storefront ready to go. Obviously, every brand that's going to be using a tool, the power of Sitecore Commerce, is going to have a custom experience. Very rarely are you going to see somebody taking something off the shelf, right? But they want a starting point, right? And having something that is a functioning storefront that you can start to customize is a really valuable offering. So RightPoint's actually created Spark Commerce, which is an accelerator, which is a fully functional storefront all the way from catalog to checkout and profile management that is really ready to actually extend and start to build sites upon, versus starting from scratch and starting to wire everything together on the front end to actually take advantage of the Sitecore Sitecore Commerce underlying frameworks. All right. Looking at some of the things that are there is, it's all built on Helix. There are starter templates for your homepage, category browsing pages, product pages, search results, carts, billing, order confirmation, payment integrations. Really, it's a full end-to-end starter store that you're able to actually extend and take into building it, something that can be the foundation of your commerce experience on Sitecore Commerce 9. Unlike the past presentation, I actually adapted this quite a bit from the presentation that was done at Sitecore, so I haven't posted it online, but if anybody does want the slideware, reach out to me. I'm jschneider@rightpoint.com, and I can send you the slides. Any questions? Amy?
Can you elaborate on how would combine or
Combine the beacons with Sitecore? So it's more around just the notifications in a mobile app to let somebody know that you've arrived in the store with near field technology, right? It's a little bit more conceptual, right? And that's not really a Sitecore specific application, right? I mean, that's Sitecore's powering the content and commerce, but the ability to have people have pass through geofences is nothing new, right? It's more about putting the whole picture together and the strategy to create the experience.
Is your accelerator built on the SXA storefront, or would you say it's an alternative to the SXA storefront?
Yes, it's built on the XSA storefront. Yeah.
Geared to the SXA storefront? Not production ready, you're saying?
So the Habitat application is not, right? We're building it on the, yeah, exactly, yeah. The front end code and all that kind of stuff. All right. Thank you very much. Who's gentleman now? Steve. Awesome.
I think you're after me, right? Yeah. I'll try to. Yeah, just take 5 minutes, and then with that, take 5 minutes. Have you Mute my mic. Where?
Sorry, it wasn't. And then you just, if you want to share it, like, just hit the,
Okay, let me exit out of my. Nice.
Can we zoom in?
Do you have a clicker? Do you have? Sure. Or Craig, you want to drive for me? You feel like if I sit on
How long till we start?
Huh?
How long till we start?
Like 2 minutes. You got about there? Go for it. Are you singing on Google Hangouts or?
I'm like so. I'm sorry. It's like yeah, I just realized that. Wait, this is on the yes, right now. Why did they use this thing too?
Oh yeah, sure.
I'm gonna have Craig drive, but I saw it.
You want Do you have a normal USB?
Craig's gonna come up with it.
Your driver. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Hey, how do I drive on these things? How do I do it for real? What's the next? I just tap? Is there a page down? I think you just tap, right? Down, like that? Which way did you go? Forward.
All right, we're ready to get started.
Taxi?
Yeah, no, he's my designated driver. So, yeah, I got Craig, right?
All right, clicker guy.
How's that idea? Yeah, good.
Excellent. Thanks, Nick.
All right, thanks, guys. So I'm Steve Overheating from Avedon. Accessibility. Accessibility is it's a pretty hot topic. I was really surprised that I had like almost 150 people show up to my session. And I was just, it was 9 o'clock in the morning. It was the last day. It was after the big party at the Universal Park. Yeah,
They were still up, right?
They were still awake. Yeah, 9 o'clock. A little bit, yeah.
It's pretty good.
If you're looking at or tapping into accessibility, it is a hot topic for folks that are in the financial services side of things, as well as government. So I'm not sure if you have clients that are on that side of things, but at the end of the session, I had probably about 20 people that came up to me and was like, "Hey, how do I avoid getting sued?" And all these other. So there's a lot of things that people are considering, and that's it's sad and it's motivation, but it is something that is important to consider. So, next slide. It's really about empowering all people across, and it's allowing your not just customers, but the people you want to interact with digitally to be empowered to experience all that everyone else sees. So, bless you. So topics I'll cover, I'll go through the accessibility. I'll try to speed this up because I was supposed to start at 7:40, so I'm a little behind, but I want to make sure Corey has enough time also to present on his last session. So
His stuff's not important.
no. All right, next slide. A little bit about me. So yeah, that's me. Yeah. We're jamming. I like music. Yeah, so first started working with Sitecore in 2008, actually with this guy, Mr. MVP. I run the technology group across, I'm here in Atlanta, but I travel all over the place. So Seattle, Chicago, Toronto. We're all doing Sitecore related things. So accessibility, so it's it concerns not just the visual side of things, but it also gets into the hearing, the cognitive, the speech, mobility, and then the neural side of things. So this is something that's near and dear to my heart. My son is actually dyslexic, and he is on the autism spectrum. I see it every day with like how he interacts with digital, and he gets excited about Fortnite, videos and things like that. So. But he turns on the closed captioning to understand a little bit of like what's going on. So it's like it opens my eyes to say, oh wow, there are different ways that people see different things in the digital side of things. The next one. This is an example of someone who is dyslexic. So you can see it's quite overbearing. I mean, you've got things changing as you look at it, and it's not. Something you think about on a consistent basis unless you have this this condition. If you go to the next one, and this is someone that has macular degeneration. So think of older people. It's one of the leading causes of blindness. So there's just this annoying spot that's like right in the middle, and you're trying to see this, but you have to like look over here in order to understand like what's going on over here. Here on the next one. This is someone who's gone through a stroke. So it's called tunnel vision, but essentially you're just like, you only have a small, section of the website that you can look at a time. So why is it important? I mean, it's again, I mentioned it's about equality. It's about giving people equal rights to your website, the content that you're putting into Sitecore, and trying to publish and getting out to people and interact. It's something you gotta keep in mind. Like, hey, there's more than just a regular user. It's more than just like what I would see. Next. 56.7 million people have a disability. That was surprising to me. From a visual standpoint, 8.1 million, but also from a just lifting and trying to interact. And this is not permanent disability. This is think about people that broke their arm and they're trying to use the mouse. That they're right-handed. So 19.9 million people. And it's not just disabilities from the physical sense or cognitive sense. And think about aging. If you see over here, in 2018, I mean, it has crossed over where there are more older people than there are younger people. Just today, 10,000 baby boomers turned 65. So it's something to consider. I mean, I showed the first or the second slide was macular degeneration. I mean, think about your parents, think about your grandparents. I mean, it's, you know, how do you put yourselves in their shoes and how they interact with the digital sense of things from an experience standpoint. So, business case. If you're looking to build a business case with your clients, I mean, these are the big hot items of what to hit. Not just increasing the audience reach, but also Google is looking into this. So they're actually improving your SEO results if you're including things like ARIA tags or alt tags. There's a legal side of things, the positive social impact. So, you know, just being able to interact with a larger group and being able to tout that is something to be proud of. And finally, the efficient site development. So from a performance standpoint, if you look at some of the accessibility requirements that are out there, it actually improves the download speed and just interacting and, you know, making sure that you're keeping in mind, like, hey, you know, someone that has a screen reader, they're able to, you know, pull the content and everything else out in an efficient manner. So, how does it work? There's a combination of different things. So there's components and structures, and you know, it's all built in what's called semantic information. So, you know, the way I look at it is it's the next generation of responsive design. So you're not responding to mobile, you're responding to people. But it really is important. Assistive technology. So if you're interested in like what screen readers people use, here's a good user survey that WebAIM put together just to provide some input as to what you'd want to test your interfaces with. You got JAWS and video are the most popular ones. Assistive technology. So there are Braille keyboards actually that take your digital display and convert it into the Braille touch points. There's also Zoom text. Next one. And actually, Mick Ebeling was one of the keynote speakers. And he talked about his invention of iWriter. Go Google I guess it was a TED Talk that Mick Ebeling put together. I mean, it's worth taking a look at how he came up with this invention. It's really eye-opening. So affordance is a natural, intuitive design. So if you look at the koozie here, there's no instruction here that says, hey, put your bottle here, right? I mean, it's just natural, it's intuitive. And you want to make your website you know, as intuitive as that. So some of the things to consider is affordance. The next one. How you do that is through semantics. So that's what generates what's called the affordance and the accessibility tree. When you're building out your website, you want to make sure that you use some of the standard built-in elements. So the input password fields, your buttons, your checkbox. You want to use you know, custom divs sparsely if you can. If you can use the out-of-the-box things, it's the best way to go. Putting it together, so you've got your semantics, generates a GUI, which is the affordance, and your accessibility behind scenes, which then is used by the assistive technology. Next one. So I mentioned this about div. The other thing you can use is what's called ARIA tags to help express what your divs are trying to say to someone that is using a screen reader. This is an example of showing the. Go ahead. So how do you see what the affordance tree looks like, or the accessibility tree looks like? So actually in Chrome, if you go over here, you can look at the accessibility on the side. This shows the tree. This also shows the ARIA attributes. So right now we don't have attributes on this habitat site. But if you drill down a little bit further, you can go into the region, the generic container. And you'll see that there are ARIA labels that are actually used in this instance. And that's for the search. So Coveo actually provides a lot of the ARIA tags out of the box. So something to consider when you're implementing is to just double check that that's coming across and that is testing properly in your screen reader. The other thing is alt text. Will you use alt text? Good, that's good. A lot of people just ignore it. They go through and they're like, they see the blank alt text and they don't think it's important. It is actually important. The key takeaway from this slide is you want to make sure that you use good examples or good input for the alt text. So don't be verbose. Think of a screen reader that's going to read all this. It's just going to be overwhelming if it's reading, man sitting at the table eating spaghetti with meatball salad, and garlic bread, and a glass of red wine. Then you just say, man, table, spaghetti. Go to the next one. So here's an example of a bad alt tag. So brown fuzzy headphones with a tan monkey face on each side. So this is coming from the storefront that was out of the box, this reference site. So any volunteers of what they should label the alt tag? Monkey headphones. I like it. Okay, so where do you modify that? So if you go into your media library, you can see there are images, your habitat. You see these warnings? Those warnings mean that you need to put those alt tags in there. That means something. So don't ignore those. We're going to the monkey tag. And this is built in with the media library. So if you go down to your asset itself, you'll see the alt tag right here. This is where you make the modification under the images. The image section. I said fuzzy face. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right, so auditing, how do you check accessibility concerns or requirements? So there are a couple of things you can look at. The WebAIM checklist, which I provide a link at the end of this presentation. You can do your tab test, which is just essentially using your keyboard to go through and make sure that you can interface with your digital experience without using a mouse. There's a screen reader. The keyboard control, which is a combination of the tab test as well as the arrows, and then the color and contrast, which is making sure that high contrast is supported on your website. Hit the volume up. In case you're wondering what
linked, stored, linked, support, linked, your account, visited, linked, image, linked, appliances, list, you are currently on a link. You click this link, press control, option, space.
Sorry, with a long list with the alt tag.
Press link, appliances.
It's because of the screen reader.
Appliances, habitat, retail, HTML content. You are currently on HTML content. To enter the web area, press control, option, shift, down arrow. Links menu. Visited, linked, stores, linked, support, linked, your account, visited, linked, image, habitat technology, headings menu. Heading level 1, heading level 6, heading level 4, heading level 4, link, heading level 4, link, heading level 4, link, habitat equal 4 door 2.0 cubic foot refrigerator with ice maker and Wi-Fi. You are currently on heading level 4. Headings menu. Form controls menu.
I'll share this as well if you want to get the full experience. The other thing to look at is, so there's an ACTS extension. So the accessibility experience extension is used to essentially provide an audit. So you can add this as free for charge. You go through the ACTS, and it provides you some information of like, here's where you should use an ARIA tag for this instance. Click on the Learn More link. It will take you to the actual rule. So this is, who's heard of WCAG? WCAG compliance, yeah. Okay. So this gives you the specifics of like, here's how you fix it, and here's why it violates WCAG compliance. And other things to look for, so making sure as you have that the visual focus is in the proper area. So you don't want to go into some, hidden field. Keyboard navigation, making sure that arrows are supported. screen reader syntax. So as you put all tags, make sure it's clear and concise. And then the high contrast mode. Thank you, Corey. What are the most problematic areas? So CAPTCHA is really a bad, feature. So just be aware as you're looking or implementing CAPTCHA. There's other ways you can confirm that a person is a person and not a robot. I consider those. Believe it or not, Flash is still an issue, but yeah, there. Yeah. So the other thing to look at is you can look at your analytics. If you click next, or go play ready there. In your analytics, this will give you some inference as to how people are interacting with your website, obviously, but specifically, where are people having some issues with your site? Where are they exiting? So you can go to the bounce rate and look at, okay, I see some people are having issues with my login page. So there must be something there. So this will help you narrow down your focus as to where you should test out, a screen reader or some other assistive technology tool. The other thing to call out is devices. If you see on the device, there's not a device detection capability for assistive technology. There's not a way to say, okay, is this person coming into my site using a screen reader? And that is that's actually by design. So there's some debate around that. How should we react to sort of people that are using assistive technology? And there are those that are for like being able to react to that and present an experience that's tailored towards that. There are others that says that's just adding another layer of maintenance. That's another thing to worry about, and it's just going to add expense. So where do you guys fit on that? I'll leave that up to you. There's certainly a lot of articles on that particular issue. All right. So this slide is there's a lot on here, but essentially it takes a village. It's a lot of it's not just the developers that's going to be involved with this. It's also your designers. It's your information architect. It's also testing. Microsoft is heavily vested in accessibility issues, and so if you go here, you can actually find some guides as to what are some things to consider from a use case standpoint. And here are some developer tools. And this is Craig go here with the Volvo that we gave away on the at the Sitecore Symposium. So. Anyway, well, Corey, I hope I left you enough time. But, thank you guys. If I don't think I have time for questions, but 2 minutes. 2 minutes? Any questions? Go back there.
Is there a way to access this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll share that. I guess through our.
So we can figure out. Share it somewhere, right?
Yeah, Martin.
Yeah, so we're recording
Martin,
all the
where's Martin?
presentations.
Hey, get in the room.
Yeah, all the presentations will be on Lookout will be at the user group page. Where's the make it work? No, it looks pretty good so far. No complaints.
Oh, there have been plenty of complaints.
I will also share the PDF if I need it, so I can do a Bitly or whatever. If,
Yeah,
people want to. Yeah. Yeah, Axe is a very good tool. So the AXE, it's not just a deodorant. It's it's a really good tool that's a plugin for Chrome, and as you can tell, it directs you to the different rules. So very much oriented to the standards that if you're specific WCAG level 1. That can crawl the site. Yeah. Okay. Go back one.
How far?
Right here.
Oh.
So Axe actually provides a dev tool for if you want to integrate this. So if you go to this GitHub address, you can tie it to your CI/CD process that will crawl your website as you're doing deployments. So it's actually a good mechanism to ensure that every deployment is tested. all your data.
This one?
Yeah. I gave this presentation like 8 weeks ago, so I'm a little rusty, but yeah, I think I have. Like I said, I'll share this out. So you guys have one more back there. Yep. So in all transparency, the first 2 slides or 3 slides that I used Buckhead. That was what I went through to show the dyslexic and the macular degeneration issues. All right. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Next layer. Okay.
Look at you go, multitasker.
It's really hard. Okay, so last call. Has everybody participated? If you don't participate, you're going to regret it at the end. So you're not going to participate? I already regret it. Okay. All right. Do you have the time?
Sure.
Okay. I want to respect people's time. All right. JSS and marketing automation. I am Corey Smith, Sitecore MVP and solutions architect at Proficient Digital.
I am Rick, or Sitecordial, and I am proud to be presenting with, as it says, the JSS Goldmaster, Sitecore, with the proper representation nearly of his mustache situation.
The situation, okay. It's coming back. It takes a couple of months, but it'll.
Wish it didn't.
All right. So JSS and marketing automation. This is an abridged version of our presentation from Sitecore Symposium. Really, the goal of the presentation was to make people at Symposium feel comfortable about starting to develop their websites using JSS. And we built out a sample site that hopefully all of you have participated with, that was built totally on JSS and takes full advantage of marketing automation features. So what is JSS? Over the years, we've had several rendering engines in Sitecore. We've had XSLT, of course. Woo, you know what? You've actually, you know, I was about to say, you've actually got one friend in New Zealand who still uses XSLT today. Bruce Daviskoff is still like a huge fan of it. All right, Bruce, George is not your friend anymore, but yeah, so there was XSLT, web forms, of course. Hopefully, if you're doing that, it's only for maintenance projects. It's not for anything new that you're doing. And then, of course, MVC today. Hopefully, that's what all your new projects are on. Kind of the common thing between the three of these is that they're server-side rendering technologies, right? But Angular, Vue, React have kind of come on the scene as client-side rendering technologies that in a nutshell, basically make your websites feel a lot more responsive. They make them feel a lot more native. And honestly, I think that probably within a couple of years, we're going to be saying the same thing about MVC that we say about web forms and XSLT today. Stop using them, right? Use JSS and start building your websites that way. Because if you put a site built on MVC right next to a site built on JSS, like the exact same one, you can tell the difference. And it's not like just you as a developer can tell the difference. Your mom can, your grandma, like it really makes a difference. It's a lot faster. You're not having full page refreshes, etc.
Are you making me your mom or grandma?
You're my uncle.
Okay.
The one I stay away from at Christmas.
like the opening slide. Okay.
Just like the opening slide, yeah. The other really cool thing that JSS is doing for us in this space is going to bring new developers onto our teams, right? So whereas today, like if you're looking for a Sitecore dev, if you can't find somebody with Sitecore experience, hey, let's get somebody who's got .NET experience. Well, JSS, I think, is going to change this, and we can start looking for people who've got Angular or Vue or React experience, and we can bring them onto our teams.
Yeah, you know what I'm going to say. Just if you are a hiring manager, don't expect to just bring in an HTML or CSS developer. You need to be looking for somebody with this skill set. It does open up that landscape, but you know, just make sure that you're filling in the right request there.
Right. The kind of killer feature in JSS that makes front-end developers actually want to do Sitecore development is disconnected mode. This lets them develop Sitecore sites without Sitecore. They don't have to wait like 30 minutes for their site to refresh after making changes, etc. Disconnected mode is pretty awesome. They can develop like a full Sitecore site without the marketing automation features that Rick loves, right? So that is kind of one limitation. In disconnected mode, you're not going to get personalization, you're not going to get the marketing automation, etc. But you can rapidly prototype your website and get that ready to import into Sitecore so that you can start leveraging those features. Disconnected mode runs anywhere. It's just running on a node server, so it can run on Macs, which make front-end developers really happy. You can run it on Linux. That site that you guys actually just interacted with was actually running on Docker, which is pretty cool. So that's another...
Off of this.
Yeah, I was running off of Docker on Rick's iPad mini, which that may or may not be true. I don't think Rick knows what Docker is.
I'm not supposed to. That's why you're a gold master.
But anyways, yeah, that's really cool. So it opens up a lot of architectural possibilities that we don't have today with Sitecore because we're stuck with Windows. At this point, normally I would drop into disconnected mode and demo it, but in the interest of everyone's time, I won't. So I'll talk about a couple of lessons learned. First of all, cookies. So in Sitecore, cookies are king. Personalization, all of that stuff, A/B testing is driven off of a cookie. And so whenever you're writing forms, because right now Sitecore Forms is not supported with JavaScript services. Again, there is no Sitecore form support in JavaScript services at the moment. So if you want to develop forms, you have to write them from scratch. One of the really big things to keep in mind when you're writing forms is if you're using Axios or Fetch to post back to your forms, this line right here, you have to have it. So if you're a developer and you're going to do JSS, take a picture of this screen. That's pretty important. Basically, what that does is ensure that your cookies get sent back to the server. If you don't have that, then nothing's going to work. Whenever you post back your forms, you're not going to get the identification that you expect, and et cetera, et cetera. CSRF, so cross-site request forgeries. Yeah, my wife is calling. I'm not going to answer that.
I'll get it.
All right. So CSRF attacks, cross-site request forgeries. This used to be in the OWASP top 10. Is it funny that I'm ignoring my wife's call?
No.
Some say no.
It's very serious.
I'm in the middle of a presentation. Craig says okay. Cross-site request. Cross-site request. She's calling back.
Could be serious.
Mush mush. Mush mush. Okay, I think it's a butt dial actually. Okay, so CSRF attacks.
What is that? I don't know.
That's cool. I think I need. How about that? Okay. CSRF attacks, cross-site request forgeries. That like totally ruined my flow. Cross-site request forgery attacks, you need to mitigate against them. MVC comes with a nice protection. It's an HTML helper, like HTML.anti-forgery token. That isn't there for JSS. So check out this website, jss.ma/csrf. Take a screenshot of this with your phone. This is Microsoft documentation explaining what a CSRF attack is and how you can mitigate that with Web API. Last but not least, GraphQL. So whenever you're working in JSS, in MVC, you've got your controller, right? So your controller is kind of your middleman between Sitecore and your view. And in your controller, you can do some manipulation of the model. When you're working in JSS, you're working directly against the layout service. And the layout service is just returning Sitecore data as is. There are going to be times when you want to transform that data and you want to make mutations to it, but you don't have a controller. And that's where GraphQL comes into play. So GraphQL basically lets you reshape the data from the layout service however you want. I think Rick's described it as the world's best select statement.
That's what I think that was me.
Yeah, you got that from the JSS documentation. Yep. It's pretty cool. So if we drop over into Sitecore really quickly, I can demo that on one of these tabs.
I got it.
Thank you. So when you're working in JSS and Sitecore, you're actually not working against controller renderings because this is an MVC. You're working against JSON renderings. See, this is why we want to work in disconnected mode because Sitecore is so slow sometimes. Oh no, an error occurred. That's the first time we've had that happen, and how many times? I think we've done this.
6.
Yeah, we've done this more than 3 times. Yeah. So when you look at your renderings in Sitecore, you've got a new fancy field, this GraphQL field. And this actually can in some ways act like a controller. So you can actually come in here. I've got to grab some data from Sitecore I don't have time for, but you can actually come in here and use a GraphQL query to define what you want your data to look like from Sitecore for that rendering. So this can, again, kind of act as a controller for you, and that's pretty cool. But yeah, this is really neat because it's got autocomplete, so you can see what the kind of things are available, like submit text. That's one of the fields on this music form rendering, and you could change it to like return the display name or the name. But yeah, that's pretty sweet. But yeah, we do all this to get eventually to connected mode where Rick can do his cool stuff. So Rick, you want to talk about some of the things that you're able to do with their data?
Would you like me to do that?
I would.
All right.
I want to stop talking in case my wife calls again. Yeah.
Do you have the connected mode?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I'm the marketer, I'm the strategist. So what there's disconnected and connected mode. I just know it as mode. So the point I want to illustrate here is, from the beginning, Corey talked about, the speed of this. There was a noticeable speed change in that client side native feel. Everything just felt quicker and more responsive. And, we basically walked a lot of you through a process. So, let's talk about what was built. And again, all of the marketing features of the Sitecore have not changed. The JSS does not introduce the fact that I can do more than I can with Sitecore and connected mode. It's the same stuff. It just feels more responsive. But we walked the journey that you went through. We took you from anonymous to campaign ID that you basically came in through a URL that supplied a campaign ID, and then that form that needed to be built because that is one thing that it's not compatible with Sitecore forms at this point. So Corey built out the form, but here you're looking at data for, I can't see, oh, that's Ryan, okay. So, just look in 30 seconds to a minute what we've gained in information, and one thing that's kind of fun is the little robot hash there that was a Gravatar, addition that basically if anyone has a Gravatar in this room, your photo would show up, and maybe you'll find one if we're lucky, but that was a fun little tool to kind of extend I'll call it boring silhouette that is normally there. But for marketers and salespeople that are looking for images that's connected to Salesforce, you can see some fun things. And obviously there's probably some joke emails and everything in here right now because, we're at a Sitecore user group. But again, let's look at just the different data that's been drawn in here. So if, I'm gonna pause at one of these.
I was trying to find somebody that's actually got an avatar, but shave the mustache. Who was that?
But you have a timeline at the top. You have
there we go. Luke face.
There you go. There's a face up there.
Yeah.
All right. So you can see the campaigns. You can see pattern matches because we have profiles built on there. So we've got campaigns. We've got goals. We've got behavioral profiling going on, and we have really a more complete solution than I've been exposed to with JSS, using JSS, and again that responsive nature. So we took you again through that, gathered that form data, from that campaign and triggered goals and outcomes, and then we drove into, and I'm just going to move on to the automation piece, where we had, and I don't know that it's working at this moment for today. I think we're just going to there's normally a set of emails that go out. And this is divided up into two categories. And if you're looking at that application when you're going through that website, when you're going through it, there was a choice at the bottom that said, I'm changing my mind. I came in, I chose country. Actually, I want to switch it to a different style. So we basically built an automation that split that decision between I'm decisive or I'm not decisive. And then on each side is the rock, country, and R&B. So that's the automation. And you could do this with two columns with emails that are just personalized based on the genre, and we're, again, just from time, we're not going to really be digging into the reporting, but you can see in real time when you click into the reporting on the marketing automation, traffic flowing through. So that's why I kind of divided it up. So as a marketer, it's a lot of fun to be able to parse out those reports and go watch, like say I launched an email campaign and go to this report screen to start actually seeing the numbers flow through and see that information. So there's with anything with Sitecore, there's multiple ways to approach. Because this was a pretty simple campaign with a landing page type approach, we divided up the marketing automation that way. So it kind of, adds to that excitement. And then normally there's emails that confirm and that would be coming to you. But again, we have that trimmed down for today's application.
All right, the part everyone's waiting for.
Yeah, so then we took this one step further and used XConnect to connect that data out to a console app that Corey put together to basically generate. And at Symposium, we gave away a gift card. Tonight we have 3 bags.
No, I think it's 5.
3 bags. No, we have 5. We have 5.
That's not even funny.
we have 5 bags. 5 bags to give away. So we're gonna do 5 different cycles through people. And if you gave a joke name or email, you're disqualified.
Womp womp. Yeah. Oh, we'll just keep going. I don't want to take these home.
But that's so that's the process that we went through all the way. From the content to the through the prerequisites of marketing, through the marketing automation to normally, like I say, we had the email functionality set up all the way through XConnect for the console app, and it was really that full, very native, responsive feel in Sitecore, all built on JSS by the JSS Gold Master, Corey Smith.
All right, let's do it.
How many participants?
23 participants. All right.
I'll be Vanna.
Who's gonna win? Well, George, you didn't use your real email address. If you get picked, I'm not gonna give you a bag.
Can I just say you don't know that?
I'm pretty sure you don't have isawesome.com.
Pretty sure I do.
All right, here we go. Who's it gonna be? Sean Brundle. All right, Sean. Okay, let's do this again. It'll be faster this time.
This is real marketing. See?
All right.
Tangible.
Robert Cristobal. All right, Robert. He likes punk rock. You look like a punk rocker. All right. Oh, it's a great thing. Yeah. All right, up next. Shu Jackson. All right, Shu. All right, we got 2 more.
Yes, we do.
Michael Yao. All right. A rapper. You look like a rapper. All right, and last but not least, who's it going to be?
George.
No. No. All right.
Recount.
We're going to do a who is of isawesome.com. And if you don't own that domain, we're moving on.
It's under my synonym.
All right. No, do not give him that bag. Next. Oh, the app crashed. Can you believe that? Do not give him that bag. We're going to run it again.
And to round this all out, we're selling all this data to a credit card company.
Yeah. Let's see. We need to go to the winner picker. There's going to be a lot more suspense because it.
Yeah,
right.
it's me again.
If it's George again, it's George.
No, it's not.
I didn't hack your house.
We will stay here all night until we find someone else. I'm not giving George that back. Should have used web forms. Man.
I'm sorry.
Sitecore Diana. No, it's not, but I saw him in there. No, Shu Jackson. Press Y to select again. Okay. You know what happens if you put more than one character? It crashes.
Who built this thing?
Rick.
I did not.
This console app was actually Rick's first programming project against XConnect.
What happened to Rick?
What happened to Rick?
Yeah.
I don't know.
We don't know. People are still trying to figure that out.
Craig, your email address is in all caps.
See how much we're learning just
He
from.
likes to yell it.
It's case sensitive.
Ted Duncan. All right.
Oh my goodness! Oh, thank you! Oh my God! Oh, all right.
Thank you.
All right. The web forms, man. Congratulations.
Yes.
It didn't make the lights go out.
I don't know why the lights went out, but it was awesome. Thank you for coming to the Atlanta Sitecore User Group. It's been a blast. Congratulations to all tonight's winners. I don't know if we have time for questions. Probably not. What time is it?
I don't know. Your wife killed the phone.
Yeah. Yeah, we're done. Thanks, guys.
She's a lovely individual.
She is.